The following is a non-profit horror story narration. The story, narrated with full permission and cooperation, is written and owned by the author, who is credited in the subject line and in the description down below, along with a link to the original story. This video may contain some material such as violence, creepiness, jump scares, adult language, and suggested content which may not be suitable for some viewers. Please support the official release, and viewer discretion is advised.
When I came to, Lisbeth was beside me and looked down at me with a sad expression. I went to speak, but was immediately stopped by the surprising amount of pain that rushed through my body. I was in a foreign place unfamiliar to me. It was a small room, and I had an IV hooked up to my right arm. My ribs had been wrapped and hurt when I struggled to get up from my laying position.
"He's awake!"
Lisbeth yelled, followed by a man soon entering the room. He was a bigger fellow and very broad. He wasn't very tall, though. "Oh, good, you're awake. I know you're going to want to move, but you need to wait a while before you can. Your ribs are very bruised, along with every part of your body. But your ribs and face got the worst of it," he said as he checked my IV and such. "Scarring on the face should be minimal, and you should be able to have full mobility back within a week or two," he said with a smirk. "Where's Johnathan?" I said as I came to terms with the pain. It hurt a lot more than when they had been beating me.
"Oh, Jonathan had to do his thing, you know,"
the man replied as he stood at the foot of the hospital bed frame I was in.
"This is Jonathan's friend. He's a doctor of sorts, apparently,"
Lisbeth said as she looked at me. "Oh, yes, sorry about that. Call me Jacob. Yours and Jonathan's friend here is a keeper. She has such a big heart," he said as he gave her a gentle pat on the shoulder and went to leave. "Oh, and if you need anything, just yell for me," he said as he left through the doorway, which was in the upper right corner of the room. A few days passed in silence. Lisbeth stayed watching over me, though, but Johnathan didn't show up once. After 3 days of being on bed rest, I was sick and tired of doing nothing. I was angry and wanted revenge. "I'm going to kill them," I said to myself as I struggled to lean upward.
"You can't. You can't kill,"
Lisbeth said as she pushed me gently back down onto the laying position. "Watch me," I said as I tried once again to get up, but this time failed all on my own.
"What good does killing them do?"
she said as she stared at me in the eyes. "They're demons hiding in a human's body."
"And you'll just be like them if you kill them,"
she said as she got up from her seat. "I'm already a demon," I said as I looked at her with a menacing stare.
"Not to me," she said. "You saved me that night. No matter the reason why, that proved there's still good in you."
I had no response for that. I never really thought of myself as having any good left. The remainder of that week I spent learning to trust Lisbeth on a similar level that I trust Johnathon on, and thinking about what she said. Lisbeth's psychotic episodes happened not nearly as often, and when they did, they weren't as severe. For the most part, she would stay somewhat in touch with reality during them. My ribs were healed enough to resume normal people activities, but some pain was still there. I had a scar on my upper lip and on my right cheek. Life began to return to a somewhat normal routine, but normal never lasts long. A week after I had gotten out, 2 weeks since I had been beaten, things would change forever. Lisbeth and I were laying outside, looking up at the starry sky. This became a normal thing for the two of us. After all, it got boring having to wait to heal for 2 weeks, and Johnathan always seemed to never be around anymore. And when he was, he wouldn't let me go with him, even though I'm fine. She enjoyed trying to find the constellations and tried to explain to me why they were cool. But I found most of it more boring than nothing.
There? The Big Dipper and Little Dipper,
she said as she pointed up into the night sky. I only see the North Star, I said, bored and confused.
How do you know about that, but not the constellations?
She said, baffled. Because knowing which star leads north is useful, unlike all this constellation stuff, I said, yawning with boredom.
Fair enough, but still. Isn't there some level of enjoyment when you look up at the stars and can only imagine all the possibilities?
Possibilities of what?
Anything,
she replied with a smile coming across her face. How can you be so positive all the time? I mumbled to myself as I looked at her. Shortly thereafter, we went in and ate some dinner before calling it a night. Then in the middle of the night I woke up. There was not a single noise to be heard. I turned my head to look around the room, but saw nothing out of the ordinary. Then, when I went to go back to sleep, I could feel something was off. And that was when I noticed the trailer door was open. I went to look again and saw the silhouette of a tall person over next to Lisbeth. I felt next to where I was on the floor, slowly looking for my knife, trying to avoid being noticed. Then as I felt the handle for my knife, I picked it up and observed the intruder. They had their back turned to me and had put their left hand over Lisbeth's mouth and nose. I slowly got up from my sitting position as Lisbeth started to struggle some, grabbing the intruder's left wrist. As I was about to charge at the intruder, the trailer's floor creaked. I held my breath as the person's head shot up and went to turn towards me. As they began to turn their head, I charged at them, stabbing them in the right side of the back. "Run, Lisbeth!" I yelled as the intruder let out a groan of pain. Lisbeth tried to take a deep breath as she tried to process what was going on. The intruder grabbed me and lifted me by the throat, slamming me against the wall of the trailer. "Run, Lisbeth! Run!" I choked out as the intruder threw me from the wall and towards the door. Lisbeth started to get up as the intruder lifted her off of her feet and swung her over his left shoulder and headed towards the door. I grabbed their foot as they walked past me and grabbed a hold of my knife, which was still in their back. They growled in agony as they fell to their right knee. The intruder pulled something from their belt with their right hand. I began to pull the knife out as I was hit right in the face by the barrel of a handgun, sending me back a foot. My grip of the knife was so hard, though, that it was ripped out of the intruder's back as I fell to the floor. They yelled in pain as they headed out the door. I tried to recover, a bit dizzy from the hit in the face. I ran after the intruder, who was now moving at a slower pace due to the injury in their back. Lisbeth was struggling, kicking and pounding the intruder's back. As I drew near to them, I noticed the intruder was going straight to the truck that Johnathan always drives. The intruder turned back towards me and pointed the gun at me and stopped as I did. "What happened to Johnathan?" I yelled demandingly. No reply. "I'm not stupid. If you were going to shoot me, you would have done it back there." He instantly shot right by my foot as I said that. "I'm not going to let you take her!" I said as I gripped my knife and began to walk forward extremely slowly.
"Stop it, Brian! Are you suicidal?"
Lisbeth yelled. "I'm not afraid to die," I said as I continued to walk forward. The intruder shot another warning shot. Then all of a sudden some headlights from the dirt road came out of the forest and a group of 5 men got out. "What the hell is going on?" one man said, his voice being recognizable instantly. He was one of the men who had beaten me. Darn! Looks like somebody beat us to the bounty, another one said as the third yelled out. John! I mean, Catalyst! Do your thing! As he said that, a man came out with a gun and pointed it at the intruder as he looked at me with a smirk. It was the same man that had grabbed me. Give us the girl, he said as he fired off a bullet an inch from the intruder's foot. Run, kid, the intruder said, his voice revealing his identity as he shot at the 5 men and let Lisbeth go. He sprinted and ducked for cover behind the truck. It was Johnathan. Johnathan! I yelled, the 4 men's head darting in what looked to be like my direction. Lisbeth was running towards me, now at full speed. Run to the woods! Johnathan yelled as the 4 men laughed and began running towards me. My anger towards them made me hesitate for a moment as I wanted to run towards them. But my brain kicked in, and I realized it was an impossible fight. Lisbeth! I yelled as she ran past me and into the trailer. I followed her, watching her grab her 2 bottles of medicine and shove them in a small, almost tiny satchel. Now! I yelled at her as I ran towards the woods. My feet and heart pounding every time I hit the ground. She followed me close behind as the 4 men's silhouettes ran towards us. They're getting close to the woods! One yelled as the sound of gunshots ran over the field, the flashes of light from the shots themselves being distant in my field of vision. We sprinted in full throttle trying to make it to the woods before the men got us. I knew once we were in the woods, we could lose them. We? When did I start thinking of measures of survival as more than just for me? We reached the woods seconds before the men would have gotten us and just kept running. I knew if we went to the left, we would come across a small 8 or 10 feet drop into some deep water. If we went straight or right, we were bound to be caught. Our only chance was the water. As we were running through, Lisbeth tripped and fell. I grabbed a hold of her hand and lifted her up to her feet as I pulled towards the left. The men were slowed down immensely by the forest, like most city people, but so was Lisbeth. Within a few seconds we came to the drop-off into the water, and Lisbeth's face filled with fear. Just do what I do, I said as I crouched down and held onto the ledge of the 10-foot drop. She did the same, and we were both invisible to the men who were chasing us. As they were running towards us, they kept cursing and asking where we had gone. Then, as their voices and steps neared, 2 of them ran straight off the drop and into the water. The other 2 stood there shocked, their eyes still adjusting to the dark. What the hell? One yelled.
Holy crap! They and those brats ran right off the ledge!
The other one said as they both ran, looking for a way down. It took them a few seconds, but they found one and were heading down. I pulled myself up and then helped Lisbeth as one of the 2 men surfaced. Help me! I can't swim with all my clothes! He yelled out as he struggled to stay afloat. Let's go, I said to Lisbeth as we began to run, shortly followed by one of the men yelling, They're up there! We ran towards the road and crossed it into the other woods. The sounds of gunshots now gone, we kept on running through the forest towards civilization, all night long. Once we had reached the outer area of the city, we took a rest in an alleyway.
What's going on?
Lisbeth said, out of breath and exhausted. Johnathan. He betrayed us, I said as I clenched my fist.
But what about those other men?
They were also there for you, it seems, I said as I looked both ways down the alley. It seems everyone wants you. Have any idea why? She stayed silent for a moment before she looked at me, and then down to her face.
I went away from my neglectful parents. But they're rich and famous, so they can't have me running around. But I never thought it would escalate past a private investigator.
I stayed silent as I looked at her in confusion. It didn't matter in the end, though. All that mattered now was avoiding those guys as long as possible. Even Johnathan. How long until you run out of meds? I asked her.
Tomorrow's my last day of medicine.
And you'll be like you were before, as soon as you're off your meds? I asked. She avoided eye contact as she responded.
We can deal with it when it becomes a problem.
Fair enough. After our half-hour of rest or so, we continued moving until we came across an abandoned building, which seemed safe enough. It appeared as if it used to be an office space or something. There were a lot of cubicles. We started checking the cubicles for anyone, and to my suspicion, there was a junkie in one of them. He was complete and utterly stoned, but he had a handgun beside him, fully loaded, so Lisbeth and I went to the second floor and slept in adjacent cubicles. The rest of the night was quiet, and in the morning, it sounded as if the stoner left. Lisbeth and I mostly just scavenged through the buildings, but there was nothing of any value left in it. Not even in the fourth and fifth story. The roof was barren as well. It was a rather uneventful day, but it was around evening when I spotted someone entering the building.
I'll go check it out. You stay up here,
I whispered to Lisbeth. She nodded in reply. We were currently on the fourth floor, and the doorway on each level was open in the staircase, so we could hear the echoing from the first level in the staircase. I slowly and quietly went down to the third floor, and when I saw Johnathan entering the stairs, he looked up, his pistol in his hand, as he smiled at the sight of me. I could feel my eyes widen at the sight of him as fear rushed through me.
There you are,
he spoke, the smirk still all over his face. Stay away from us, Johnathan, or else I'll have to fight you, I said, trying to appear calm.
Kid, you haven't thought this through.
How'd you even find this?
I knew you couldn't get that far. Not on foot. And I know the way you think,
he said, quite pleased with himself. I was silent for a moment, still surprised by him finding us.
You can't fight me or intimidate me, and even if you could, what are you going to do without her meds? He said smugly.
What do you mean? Why are you even doing this? I said, as I recalled Lisbeth's reaction to me asking about her medicine.
Her parents are wealthy, and they're willing to reward anyone who brings back their daughter. So I will not hesitate to kill you, he said, his smirk leaving as he began to come up the stairs.
Run! I yelled up to Lisbeth as I sprinted upwards, Johnathan following. Even with our sprinting, Johnathan was gaining on us, and fast. We made it through the roof before he got to us, though, and ran towards the edge before I realized we were trapped. We're trapped, I said as I pulled out the pistol and were ready to fire it, as soon as Johnathan came to the door of the roof.
Brian,
Lisbeth said quietly. But I was too focused on finding a way to escape that I wasn't paying attention.
Brian,
she said as she raised her voice, but I chose to ignore her.
Brian,
she yelled as my head turned to her. She was standing near the edge of the roof.
The voices. I can't take them anymore,
she said as tears ran down her face. Her fists were clenched and she was visibly struggling.
I tried to be strong this whole time, but without the medicine, it's unbearable.
I thought you didn't want to go back, I said, confused.
I don't,
she said as she took one step closer, so she was on the edge.
I can't stand the voices. I can't stand living that way. I'm sorry,
she said as she started to lift one of her arms, sounding completely broken. Lisbeth, don't walk off the edge, I begged her. Somehow I found myself caring for her. I don't know how, but somehow I had formed some kind of bond or relationship with her. Right then, Johnathan came springing up to the stairs and came breathing heavily as he walked through the roof door. I went back to Lisbeth when she looked at me, tears still running down her face.
I'm sorry,
she spoke, her heartbroken voice piercing my ears as she fell, her arm reaching out. No! Johnathan yelled as she disappeared from sight. The sound of her body hitting the ground became audible.